In this video, I'm going to talk about Ram It Down. This was one of my anniversary albums I wanted to do in May, but I didn't have a chance. I saw there was still some interest in doing it when I did a poll a few weeks ago. So it's an album released during one of the greatest years of metal, which is 1988. But I also felt it was kind of a weak album compared to all those other albums released that year. But I'm going to revisit it. I'll talk about it, and I think there are some good songs on here. But I know it's one of those albums that does get like a lot of mixed reviews. So this is their 11th studio album, released on May 17th, 1988, through Columbia Records. The band's last album to feature Dave Holland on drums. And the album actually did pretty well. It got a gold certification, shipping over 500,000 copies like the day after it was released. So at this time in the lineup, Judas Priest was, of course, Rob Halford on lead vocals, KK Downing on guitars, and Glenn Tipton on guitars, who also played as synthesizers. I remember this was around the time they were doing those synthesizer drums right after Turbo. I'll talk more about that later. Ian Hale on bass and Dave Holland on drums. And it also says like drum machine. I'll be mentioning that later. So I found some interesting trivia with this album. It was like supposed to be a double album called Twin Turbos. So back in 1986, one half would be like the melodic commercial hard rock, and that would be Turbo, which we know. And the other one would be like a heavier album, which would be like the second part of the album. But Columbia Records didn't want to do the double album, so they ended up being split up into 1986's Turbo and 1988's Ram It Down. This is also their last album for 30 years with Tom Allom producing it. He actually would not produce any more albums until 2018's Firepower, and I thought that was interesting because Firepower, that's such a great album, and I consider it like a lot better than this one. And then the band also did a cover of Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good. It was intended for this old 80s movie with Anthony Michael Hall called Johnny Be Good. One of those old 80s movies I don't even remember too much. But it ended up finding its way onto Ram It Down, and it was the first single. Actually, this was one of the first Judas Priest videos I ever watched on MTV's Headbangers Ball back in the day, and I never liked it. I didn't think it was like a good choice for a single. I'll talk more about that later. And according to Rob Halford, the band recorded a cover of the Rolling Stones' Play With Fire, and he said it was a shame that the song didn't make that album. I actually looked for that on YouTube. I didn't find it. I don't know if it was released. If anyone knows of it, let me know. But I think it would be interesting to hear Judas Priest covering this song, Playing With Fire by the Stones. I always liked that song. So the critics were kind of mixed. I think in general, critical reaction was negative. It didn't. A lot of people said that the band failed to produce any new creative ideas, and the songwriting was inferior to their past efforts. So I'll read a couple quotes I found online. So Ultimate Classic Rock said, "Ram It Down was a patchwork collection of songs, old and new, good and bad. But for all its inconsistent songwriting and inspiration, the LP's general revival of Judas Priest's heavier side was music to purist ears." And I found some reviews on Encyclopedia Metallum. So one reviewer, his name is Morbert, he said, "The trouble with Ram It Down is that there's absolutely no vision behind it." So I can kind of get that one. It was kind of a weird time where it was like meant to be something else. And I found another reviewer called The Human Chair. He says, "One of the major problems I have with this album is that the guitar tone is very thin. It's buried pretty far back behind the programmed drums and Halford." So, yeah, that's something I noticed. I think that doesn't have the greatest like guitar sound. I'll be talking about that more in the next section about like the different songs. Some songs have these great riffs. Other ones other songs I felt were forgettable. So let's talk about that. The album opens with Ram It Down. It's fast-paced song, lots of Halford screams, fast-paced drumming. I thought it was similar to like what they would do on the next album, Painkiller, but doesn't have that same quality. The guitar riffs were not very memorable. The chorus is catchy. The guitar solo is not too bad. They kind of had like a neoclassical sound to the guitar solos. And then Heavy Metal is the second track, kind of like the most generic song title ever. That's a pretty cool guitar solo in the intro. It's okay. Halford's vocals are used like in the high range throughout the song, so the chorus is fairly catchy. The lyrics are not too bad. Considering that like so many songs have been written on this particular topic, and the guitar riffs are very good. And then Love Zone sounds like something that could have been on Turbo, and it has that glam metal sound, and the intro kind of sounds like a drum machine. I'm a fan of Turbo, but I think this song is not that great. The chorus is kind of catchy. The guitar riff is not too bad. It sounds like something from like a glam metal band and not Judas Priest. Come and Get It is a really good song. It has a classic Judas Priest guitar riff. A little bit more on the commercial side, but I still think it's a very good song, and it captures more of their early 80s sound. I also like the vocals on the song. Some other songs had these really high-range vocals, and I don't always like it when like it's always like very high, but I thought this was good. Rob Halford kind of sang in like the high and the middle range throughout most of the song, so I thought that was good. And Hard as Iron was pretty decent. It had a classic metal sound with some heavier guitar riffs. It was one of the faster-paced songs. It was energetic. Rob Halford used different vocal styles. The solo was good, and you hear different playing styles during the solo. It was one of the stronger songs with lots of galloping guitars. Then Blood Red Skies was my favorite song. It's an epic song, about 8 minutes long. And I think this is the one song that prevents this from like being like a bad album. I would say the song has a sound reminiscent to their 70s sound mixed with some of that 80s turbo. So there are some parts that kind of sounds like that drum machine, but it's still a great song. The chorus is catchy. Rob Halford gives a really great vocal performance, and there are also some really great guitar harmonies on it. The track number 7 is I'm a Rocker. I felt this was very generic. The chorus is catchy, not much more to say about it. There's some cool guitar riffs and harmonies, but it's just not really a great song. And then Johnny Be Good, like I was talking about, is one I never really liked. It was kind of different from the original. I think they probably like could have tried to keep them more like closer to the original, because the original song, this is like one of the first like songs from I guess the 50s, and it had like one of the first like memorable rock riffs. So I thought they could have kept it closer to the original. And Love You to Death, it's kind of not too bad, but kind of forgettable. It's one of those songs that, I probably listened to it like many times, but I never like remember it. It's kind of like a filler for me. And that's really all I have to say. And the last song I actually liked a lot. It's called Monsters of Rock. It's cool. It's like a slow building intro. It's kind of more of an epic feel. It's slower, has some darker tones. I liked it because it was kind of like a mix of that like Twisted Sister and Alice Cooper, like that kind of like dark type of sound. And it's a good example of the band doing like slower songs that are not necessarily power ballads. And another one of my favorites has cool guitar harmonies and some isolated vocals and bass guitar playing. And this is a really good song. So in conclusion, I have mixed feelings about this album. There are a few songs I like a lot. For example, Blood Red Skies. That's like maybe one of my top songs like, from this band. And I like the last song, Monsters of Rock, and maybe a few others I thought were pretty good. Then there's some songs I felt felt like filler. Like I didn't really like think they were great songs. And for me, 1988, that was the year like the bar was set like really high. Some of like the best metal albums of all time were released in that year. So when a band like Judas Priest releases an album like this, like I expect more like from this particular time period. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. Let me know. But Please like this video. Helps me with the algorithm, and comment. I like to respond to comments. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed to yet. And I will put another Judas Priest video right here for you to check out. And I'll see you in the next one.